Here we have a section through a typical rootstock showing the outer layer or the bark or the skin, and then we have the inner layer just inside that, which is the cambium layer where all the goodness flows in the plant, and that's the main section that we're looking for when we're grafting. Inside we just have the woody material or the pith, which is of no really value to us. Now normally through the rootstock we take a cut straight through the centre, and what we're looking through is to match at least one of the cambium layers. Now you have to match this layer, otherwise it just won't work. So if we have a piece of material which is smaller in diameter than the rootstock, then when we insert it, it looks something like this, with its cambium layer. One of course falls somewhere inside the woody material, and one we have to make sure lines up. And the easiest way to do that sometimes is just to get the outer layers to be level and hope that inside cambium layer lines up. If we have a piece of material that is the same diameter as a rootstock, and this is the preferable method and one that we try to get, and sometimes it's quite easy, then we get both sides of the cambium layer to line up, and this is generally a very successful way of getting the plant to grow. With the cut in our rootstock about 20mm deep, we then get the material we want to graft and prepare that to go into that slot. So we take a slice, just a narrow slice both sides, to make a wedge shape, and of course that material is removed with the knife. Then we slide that wedge shape into the cut we made on the rootstock. That's just a method of you may have to open it up, but it just slides in and fits like a hand in a glove, and there we have it. That's a nice neat union ready to be wrapped up with grafting tape, and within no time, on a hot day, a few hot days in a row, maybe a week of hot days, that'll take and will never look back, and you'll be blessed with another beautiful Eremophila in your garden. The grafting tape is then wound around and around that union to hold it together firmly and to ensure that no moisture gets in the gaps, otherwise you'll have some problems. Once that's been there for about a couple of weeks on very hot days, you'll find that the union starts to form. Now when the scion is a different diameter than the rootstock, you need to move it to the side so the cambium layers line up. If you put it in the middle, it just won't work, it won't take at all. So you have to position it on one side like this, and the cambium layers line up, and when you tape it up, make sure that that side there, that step, is protected from moisture getting in. So you need to wind it, the tape around that, to make it nice and neat and tight. And use myoporum. Here we cut off a tip around about 40 to 50mm long, no more than about 3 or 4mm diameter. Trim all the bottom leaves off that you don't want those,
cutting graft,
and then shorten back all the remaining leaves. You don't want the transpiration to be too great, so you just trim all those back, and it does indicate when it starts to grow, you'll see the new leaves move away, and it's a good indication. Now let's prepare a cutting. Again, we'll use the myoporum. Prepare your cuttings exactly as you do for any other cutting. Select a piece that's not too large, trim away any excess that you want. You take away the top leaf there so you have room for your grafting. That's about the size of material that I normally use. Trim away the lower leaves and trim the leaves so it doesn't have too much transpiration. And that's about the size you'll need. That's just an ideal cutting to get ready to do your graft. Now with the rootstock, just slice down the centre about 20mm, and you'll see that sometimes it'll open up, sometimes it won't, and that's ready. That's all you need to do. There you see it, just hold it open if it has any problem. That's the sort of cut that you need. To prepare the grafting material, I do it on my hand. I find it a little easier to do. There are other ways of doing it, which I'll show you later. But you need to take just a clean slice straight through it. You really hopefully do it in one go. If you don't get it in one go, don't worry, you can just go back and slice it again. But you need a nice straight cut without any waves in it. Then you need to trim the end off so it's nice and straight. There's a nice straight cut, nice wedge form, and you clean the end off so there's no to make the join. We just pick up both pieces. Now this is only for a cutting graft. You can't pick up a pot when you've got rootstock growing, but you just insert the grafting material into that cut. The wedge just goes into that slice, nice and firm. Don't squeeze it because you'll damage, you'll bruise the material. Then get your grafting tape, remove the paper backing, and the tape can be stretched just slightly or as much as you feel fits. On hot days it stretches more, but you just stretch it out a little bit. Put the tape on and hold. You need to hold the graft together as well as holding the tape. Then once you've gone around once only, it'll hold itself together, and then you continue just to wind that tape, giving it a little bit of a stretch as you go. Now you may need to wind it around maybe 8 times. On occasions when I've done less, I've found the tape has rotted away and the union has opened. So make sure you put the tape around, it's around about 8 times, nice and firm. Make sure you cover the whole slice, the whole opening, so there is no air gaps or gaps where moisture can get in. You just need to run up and down and cover over the top of the union so that no moisture can get down there either. If you found you've done too many turns or you think you've done enough, you can just break the last tail end of that tape off. But generally the length of tape is just right for a graft material that size. Now again, that's a cutting graft, so to which one you use, but you're going to get a variety of these from your cuttings. Okay, so first of all we whip the top off. We give us enough room below where we've cut to establish a graft. We slice down the middle about 20mm. You don't need to worry about the leaves, you can put the tape around those and they help with the vascular system of keeping the plant above alive. So this time we get a piece of material that you want to graft with and slice off the lower leaf and the node, and we leave the above node because it could well shoot from there, and then we trim off the leaves as before. And there's a nice little probably 30mm long cutting, and that's all that's required. You don't want great big bulky cuttings that are going to draw too much out of the rootstock, and maybe the rootstock can't support them. Again, slice a nice thin slice off to form the wedge. And again, if you have to have a couple of goes at it, don't worry about it. Nice, neat, continuous slice is the best way to go, and watch your finger. Again, if it's not nice and neat, just do it again. Check it out to make sure it has a nice wedge shape. And that should be fine. All we do now, as in the previous samples, you can see this one has opened up by itself. We fit that cutting material in till it bottoms out. Most of the times it will stay there. If it's a very small piece it may need a little bit of help, but myoporums and Eremophilas will generally support themselves. Again, get your piece of tape, about 10mm wide, 8mm wide, and start to wind it on. You have to be a little bit careful because you can't spin the cutting around in your hand in this case. It has to remain static and your fingers have to do all the work here. So the same procedure, wind it around and around, covering the top point to prevent entry of any moisture, and then work your way down to the bottom to cover the very bottom of the union, and maybe work your way up and down a couple of times until you've done about 8 turns. Nice and neat. Here we're very lucky that the scion and the rootstock are pretty much the same diameter, so it does line up fairly neatly, and that's the ideal way to go. But that's not always the case, so you have to make adjustments and maybe move it over to one side if the scion is smaller than the rootstock. Again, just get your tape, exactly the same way again, a little bit of a stretch, put it around the union, nip it in one finger to stop it slipping around, and wind it around. Again, once you've done one turn, it'll stay there. You just clean that up a bit further just by breaking off those little, what's left of those side shoots, and there we have another plant